please consider donating to the channel by scanning the on-screen code or sending your donation to $FBH9 or simply type cash.app /FBH9 in your browser. Thank you for supporting the channel. Now let's begin the video.
The history of unpunished violence against our people clearly indicates that we must be prepared to defend ourselves, or we will continue to be a defenseless people at the mercy of a ruthless and violent racist mob.
Attacking DEI is a smokescreen to make white people think black people are taking their jobs, when those jobs are really being sent overseas to non-African Americans. Also, we, as black people, should stop pushing for DEI because they only show our men and women dating outside our race in the entertainment industry, especially shows and movies, or they portray our people as non-heterosexual, trifling, or ghetto and uneducated. They make us fight against our own men and women, which is divide and conquer, a tactic that is part of the art of war.
The present government led by Mr. Trump is the working class, the unemployed, and the unemployable white class, as well as the lower middle class, probably even the middle class whites, who feel threatened by any real competition coming from any other racial or ethnic groups. And since the largest racial or ethnic group in the country, people could say it's Hispanics, but no, most of the Hispanics in the country are not citizens, so you can't say they're competition, because they could do what they're doing right now, put them on a plane and fly them out. They can't do that to the black American population. So we are the primary competition for white male Americans. And so the white male Americans, you've created a problem for the white working class and the white underclass, but you want to make them think that blacks have created that problem. So you attack DEI as though that was an instrument that gave blacks an advantage over whites. And that's really what it's doing. They know that the people who have profited most by DEI is white people. But they don't know that because the people they're trusting is telling them just the opposite. If you want to find out who's getting the preference in the jobs, it's still white people and primarily white women right now, right? You want to find out who's getting the food stamps, it's white women. You want to find out who's the majority on welfare, it's still white people. But they don't want to accept that about themselves. You really have to show them that.
We've been through too much already, not just in the streets, but in our own homes, in our daily lives, where we have been unknowingly poisoning ourselves. The microwave, for all its convenience, is one of those silent dangers we've embraced for far too long. The radiation it emits affects not just our food, but our bodies and brains too. It messes with our cells, disrupts our natural rhythms, and weakens our immune system, especially in our communities where health disparities already exist. It's time we wake up, take control, and protect ourselves. We deserve better than this silent enemy in our kitchens, and we owe it to ourselves and our children to stop letting this modern convenience harm us. Our health is priceless. Let's fight to preserve it.
Let me explain the principle of a microwave oven. It works on a Klystron tube, which is a vibratory sound emission light machine, and it brings out water that's heated. The reason why the plate is cold and the food is hot is because the food has moisture, and the moisture is now heated with radiation, and you eat it as heat. And you're eating pure, raw radiation every time you take it hot. How long do you think you can do that before your body pays? Not long at all. And most of your bodies are already paying because you are eating it. To go along, as we said, with the bad water, with the bad air, with genetic modified food, the chemtrails, and then you go and you get a shot. Not a booze, a vaccine, an inoculation. You haven't gone through enough hell, now you gotta go get pus stuck in underneath your skin.
It's no coincidence that in horror films, we're always the first to go, the ones who meet the most brutal end, while the others get to make it to the credits. They know what they're doing, and it's time we call it out. For years, they've painted us as expendable, as if our lives don't matter, even in fiction. It's the same tired narrative. We're the ones who scream, the ones who panic, the ones who don't survive, while the others walk away unscathed. But it's not just in movies, is it? This has been the story of our existence, over and over again, in every system that was never built for us to win. Hollywood likes to feed into these stereotypes, but we're smarter than that. We see the pattern. And it's time we demand stories where we rise, where we fight, where we make it to the end and come out on top, because we've been through enough real-life horror to deserve that much.
The reason I did Anaconda was because, like, the nigga didn't die. I was like, yo. That's hard. I saw Jurassic Park, and niggas died in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Man, yeah.
So I'm like, if y'all want me to be in this movie, I can't die.
Right.
and I want to help kill the snake.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And they was like, all right. And they rewrote it, and I was like, okay.
Wasn't
I'll
there
do it.
Angelina Jolie dead?
That shit was crazy.
J-Lo.
You know.
We shot that shit in Brazil. Now, not Rio, nigga.
Right.
That was in the Amazon.
Manaus, Brazil, in the middle of the Amazon.
Ooh.
Yeah, in the middle of the Amazon, and
That shit was scary for me.
I know that shit
scary for real.
Yeah.
I know y'all was in the swamp.
Yeah,
So you
that
was like,
shit
I
was
can't
real.
get in there.
But you
Hell yeah.
Hey.
Hell yeah, that's
They got
real.
snakes in
That's
there.
real.
Yeah.
No,
They got snakes in there.
In there?
In there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm in the middle of the Amazon doing a goddamn movie, and in this bullshit water. You know what I'm saying? So it all turned out cool. You know, we was actually really scared of the mechanical snake. They had a mechanical snake that these fucking college kids built, and that motherfucker went haywire one time, almost fucked up Jennifer Lopez. It malfunctioned, and that shit just started to tear up the set.
Oh, shit.
Almost
This shit
swung
looking real
and almost hit her in the face and shit, and they had to grab her out of there. So,
In the middle of Brazil.
after that, everybody looking at this fucking snake like, God damn. We scared of this motherfucking thing for real, because it was like this metal skeleton,
The black one.
but it was wrapped in this like a tire damn near. So this shit was hit you.
Yeah.
Fuck your face up.
And we acting with this shit, and we like, man, this motherfucker malfunction just pop a nigga right in the mouth. So we scared of this thing for real.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it definitely brought out reality.
We've spent so much of our lives chasing after things in this world, titles, possessions, validation from people who don't even care about us. But the truth is that attachment is what keeps us bound. The system has us believing that our worth is tied to what we can acquire, to how much we can fit into their mold. But that's a lie, and it's been used to keep us trapped in cycles of suffering, longing, and dissatisfaction. When we hold on too tightly to the things of this world, we forget who we are, where we come from, and the strength that's already within us. The chains are not just physical, they're mental, emotional, and spiritual. True liberation comes when we let go, when we detach from the illusion that we need this world to define us. We have to understand that peace, freedom, and true power come from within, not from anything external. It's time we break those chains, heal, and start living for something greater than what this world has told us to value.
Anybody who has not found this knowledge by 60 or 65 can forget this and go on to church. Okay? Their stuff is closed, clogged, and broken. You got a certain number of years to get inside. Then Noah bars the door. Okay? There's a point when the soul gets ready to exit. When it does, it closes your spiritual centers except the gate that you are able to go out of. You can't go out here if you're not raised up here. You go out here or in the back or the medulla oblongata if you're a good guy and a good girl, but you got a certain number of years to get there. Okay? And do what you want to. I mean, if you like coming down here, if you're having a good old time, enjoy. Okay? But the preference is raise up. Okay? Because what brings you back are your desires left over. from your previous life.
It's time we reclaim our power and stop letting them define our history. The truth is, the N-word didn't come from some random place in their history. It came from ours. That word, Naga, in some African languages, had roots that were not meant to degrade or demean, but to describe our strength, our resilience, and the pride in our heritage. The twisted way they've used it against us for centuries is a part of their attempt to strip us of our identity, to make us forget who we truly are. But we've got to understand where we come from, know the deeper truth about that word, and how it's been perverted to control and dehumanize us. They took something from us, something powerful, and turned it into a weapon. But now it's up to us to reclaim that narrative, to redefine what that word means, and to stop letting it carry the weight of their hate. Our ancestors fought to preserve our dignity, and it's time we honor that fight by rising above their attempt to degrade us.
I'm surprised you use the word nigga so much.
Well, nigga mean God, and I don't believe
nigga means God.
Yeah,
does
nigga
it?
does mean God. Yeah, nigga mean
I'm
God.
gonna need you to have that PowerPoint right here next to you, where you be like, "See where nigga means God."
Well, if you see the cobra that our ancestors put on their pineal gland, it was considered to be the Naga serpent, and we had an extension of the Kushite Empire into Japan that was called the Naga Kushites, and this is like where samurais and ninjas come from, and this is why you see samurai helmets got the swastika, because the swastika come from Ethiopia. Ethiopia royalty was called Negus, Negus, and so
N-E-G. Oh, I've been seeing for Hamo Pico.
Right, and so when the Germans,
he's been using that.
Right, so when the Germans came to Africa, they couldn't say Naga or Negus, so it turned into nigger, and then nigger turned into nigga, and so you got people that tell us we can't use our own word because they demonized it. But my main,
do y'all hear this right now? Wow.
Yeah, they demonized it. So, yeah, I mean, I just want Western people to know you can't tell me that I can't call myself something that my ancestors have used to denote royalty for years. Naga, Negus has been a term of royalty. People was walking around in the pyramids saying Naga, my Negus. And so I'm not going to stop using that word to make nobody feel comfortable.
We've spent too long divided over beliefs that were never meant to tear us apart. Whether you follow Christianity, Islam, tradition, or anything else, the message at the core of all faiths is the same. A higher positive power, a force that teaches us to love, to uplift one another, and to respect life. Yet we allow ourselves to be divided by doctrines and labels, when the truth is that no matter the path, we should all be striving toward the same goal: unity, peace, and love. If we truly honored that higher power, we wouldn't be caught up in arguing over who's right or wrong. We'd be focused on understanding each other, accepting each other's differences, and building each other up instead of tearing each other down. The world is already against us in so many ways, and yet we waste precious energy fighting amongst ourselves over what should bring us closer. If we truly cared about what we claim to believe, we'd see the divine in each other and start acting like it.
This religion is this and that religion is that, so how can y'all coexist? There's so many similarities amongst us all, though.
Yes, that's right. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said like this, Brother Cam. He said that a true Christian is a true Muslim, and a true Muslim is a true Christian. The minister said that religion is not what you preach, it's what you practice. So there's a story that Jesus tells when he's arguing with the Pharisees, Sadducees about religious context, and they're considering him to be someone changing the law. He said, no, I am not changing, I'm fulfilling it. But he tells them a story about a father that had two sons. And one son said, I will do my father's will when my father is absent. And when his father left, he didn't do the will. The other one said, I'm not going to do my father's will. But when his father left, he did do the will. And Jesus asked them the question, which one did the will of the Father? It's the one that didn't say it, but actually did it. So unfortunately, most of the time, people are spiritual set tripping and engaged in religious gangbanging. They look down on the vice lords, the GDs, the four corner hustlers, the Crips and the Bloods, but then you get inside of religion and do the same thing. So we in a condition right now with this world being really a sea of sin, that there was a story that I learned from the minister once about a Christian, Muslim, and Jew. There's a man drowning in the river, and the Christian comes with his rope to save the man. It was too short to save the man.
Right.
The Muslim comes, throws his rope out. It's too short to save the man. Then the Hebrew, he comes, throws his rope out too. It's too short to save. Now they got one or two options. Either they can sit on the bank of the river and argue over whose rope is the best, or they can use some common sense and tie all the ropes together and save the man. Right. We in that kind of state of condition right now. We got to tie the ropes together so we can save our suffering people.
Yeah.
Every time this country faces a crisis, we're the ones they turn to as the scapegoat. When the economy is failing, when political systems crumble, when there's a disaster they don't know how to handle, they find a way to blame us, foundational African Americans, as if our very existence is the root of their problems. They've built this country on our backs, profited off our labor, and then, when the tides turn, they look for any excuse to point the finger at us. It's exhausting and disrespectful, but we've seen this pattern too many times. They use us to divert attention from the real issues, the systems of oppression, the corruption, the inequality, and make us the face of their failures. But we can't let them keep using us like this. Our value is not tied to their shortcomings. We are not the problem. We are the solution, and we've always been the solution. It's time to demand the respect we deserve and stop letting them paint us as the enemy in their mess.
Every time America is in trouble, every time her back is against the wall, who do they call? As the song says, who you gonna call?
They call the African American community.
Exactly. The answer ain't Ghostbusters. You ain't calling Ghostbusters. You calling black folk. Every time America is in trouble, black folk come to the rescue. We are the cavalry. Let me convince you of this. In every single war this country has ever fought, when they got in trouble and it appeared that they might not win this war, might not pull it out, who did they call? Black folk. I mean, you just walk back through history. The Civil War was fought over the institution of slavery. Nikki Haley didn't want to acknowledge that, or perhaps had forgotten that when she was running for president on the Republican ticket. She gave the wrong answer when asked that question. No, Miss Haley, the Civil War was fought over the institution of slavery and whether or not it would continue.
We can't afford to forget the history that's been buried and erased, especially the legacy of places like Nicodemus, the oldest black town west of the Mississippi. This wasn't just a town. It was a symbol of our resilience, our unity, and our refusal to be oppressed. In a time when they tried to break us, when they sought to keep us in the shadows, black people built Nicodemus from the ground up, creating a haven, a place to thrive on our own terms. But too often, this history gets overlooked, erased from the pages of mainstream education and media. Nicodemus is proof of our strength, of what we can achieve when we come together, when we claim our own destiny. We owe it to ourselves and to future generations to remember it, honor it, and understand that this spirit of self-determination runs deep in our veins. It's time we stop letting them forget our stories, our triumphs, and the towns like Nicodemus that represent our true power.
That's when they named the streets and all of that.
Nicodemus is a small town with big history. It's a town in northwest Kansas established and built by former slaves from Kentucky.
These are my great-grandparents.
In 1877, newly freed slaves banded together to move to the Promised Land, the free state we call Kansas. For just $5, a family could make their way from Kentucky to start a new life. Nicodemus originally started with more than 300 settlers. When they arrived on September 17, 1877, there was nothing, resulting in some heading back east to Kentucky, while others saw opportunity.
Got out here, they thought that they was going to have everything, but they lived in a dugout and survived.
Nicodemus began making a name for itself. The highest population for the town was about 700.
Nicodemus is just one example of the larger story of come to Kansas, chase your dream.
The popularity didn't last long. Around 1887, rumors began to circulate a railroad station was coming to Nicodemus. However, it never happened. On top of that, a drought which didn't encourage settlement.
A lot of people had to move because of the demise in farming and that sort of thing, and how production was kind of going slow. And so a lot of families moved west.
Nicodemus has continued to see a decrease in population. However, it's managed to be the only black town in Kansas still around today.
We have to stop blindly trusting those who wear the mask of helping us, especially when they look like us. The truth is, some of our own have sold us out, chosen to climb the ladder of power at our expense, and turned their backs on the community when it counted the most. They might smile in our faces, but they're the ones behind closed doors making deals that hurt us, pushing policies that keep us in the cycle of poverty, and feeding into the system of oppression. We've seen it time and time again. Those who claim to represent us, only to betray us when it's convenient for their own gain. Barack Obama's presidency is a prime example of this. While many hailed him as a beacon of hope, the policies he enacted didn't always work in our favor. His support for the war on drugs, which disproportionately targeted black communities, and his silence on issues like mass incarceration left too many of us still suffering. His administration's economic recovery plan didn't do enough to address the racial wealth gap, and his refusal to directly confront police brutality allowed systemic injustice to continue unchecked. He may have been the first black president, but his actions didn't always reflect the needs or the realities of African Americans. We can't afford to idolize anyone just because they share our skin color. We need to hold them accountable for the harm they cause and demand real change. Our liberation won't come from those who pretend to uplift us while continuing to sell us out. It's time to wake up, stay alert, and recognize who's really working for us and who's working against us.
Yeah, I actually described President Obama as a Melvillian confidence man, selling us the snake oil of hope and change. Right? I mean, there's no doubt that the symbolic significance of his election mattered. My son, when he was elected, he was 9 years old. He became a grown man with black people in the White House. But he also grew up, right, with the odd juxtaposition and contradiction of a black man in the White House and Michael Brown in the street with a bullet in his head in the Canfield Apartments. Ayanna Mathis, Trayvon Martin, and we can just call the roll. And he also grew up in a time in 2008 when the economy collapsed because of greed, people robbing the coffers of the national government, and housing market collapsed where people lost their homes, and the job market collapsed where the last hired was the first fired. And he saw that the policy response of the Obama administration did not address the misery of black folk in this country in any substantive way. The only argument they could give us was that it would be worse if there were Republicans in office.
We have to remember that we didn't just wake up here today by chance. We are the product of centuries of struggle, survival, and resilience that runs deep in our blood. Ancestral lineage math is about recognizing the complex and profound journey that brought us here. Our ancestors, who faced horrors that most can't even fathom, yet survived to ensure our existence. Each of us is the culmination of their strength, their sacrifices, and their wisdom. The fact that we're alive, that we can stand here and speak, is a miracle in itself. And it's easy to take that for granted. But when we truly understand what our ancestors went through slavery, colonization, oppression, and resistance, we realize how blessed we are to be breathing, to be free, to be here in this moment. They fought for us to have a chance at life, to have the opportunity to do better, be better, and create a future they could only dream of. So, when life gets heavy and the system tries to wear us down, remember that we are here because they made it through for us. We owe it to them to honor their legacy, to push forward, and to keep their flame alive. We're here for a reason. Don't ever forget that.
The question is, how many people dwell in you that allow you to sit here right now? And that number is 1,048,576 human beings live inside of you right now over the past 500 years who have lived and brought you into existence. Think about that number. 500 years ago, it started a process of 1,048,576 human beings dwell in each and every one of you. But let me drop the other shoe, because I only took you back 500 years. How many live in you if I took you back 5 million years? How many people make you up?
That's right.
You think you're alone? Do you know how many stories of happiness and sadness and celebration and joy and leaders and doctors and nurses live inside of you? And they want to talk to you. They see where you're going. Through your eyes, your ancestors see the world. All you got to do is turn those eyes inward and look to them to support what it is. People say, like, how do you pray? Well, I talk to myself. That's how I pray.
We've got to stop letting them rewrite history and act like we weren't the ones who gave birth to rock and roll. The truth is, rock and roll didn't start with Elvis. It started with black folks who were making music long before he picked up a guitar. Artists like Chuck Berry, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Little Richard, and Bo Diddley pioneered the sound that would eventually be called rock and roll. It was our rhythm, our blues, our gospel influences, and our energy that laid the foundation. We took our pain, our joy, and our survival and transformed it into a sound that shook the world. But of course, as always, they took what we created, whitewashed it, and turned it into something that erased us from the very story we wrote. They made sure our names got pushed to the back while others took the credit. Rock and roll is our legacy, but they've never truly acknowledged the depth of our contribution. It's time we stop letting them rewrite our history. Our influence is in every riff, every chord, and every beat of rock music today. We created it, and we deserve to own that history.
It wasn't anything that we were doing so wrong. It was just that people were so slow
You were black.
to accept change.
You was black.
Tell him
again. Will you tell him, man, again? You was black, and they didn't want that black image over their kids. You was a hero.
Well, see, but
and your kids was looking up to you, and they didn't want their kids looking up at
What kids?
They didn't want the white kids looking up at this big old greasy black guy
Preacher.
out of Georgia, out of Mississippi, or out of Chicago. They want their kids to see a little smooth white boy looking pretty and on duty and looking Rudy, you know. And so here's a black guy out there singing and screaming and beating and screaming. They said, no, no, no.
Let's not forget the story of Mrs. McGee, a black mother who fought for her right to see her son after he was wrongfully arrested. When the police officer denied her, refused to let her see her child, she didn't back down or beg for her humanity to be acknowledged. She took action. Mrs. McGee knocked that white officer out. And in that moment, she wasn't just standing up for herself. She was standing up for every black mother who's had to fight to protect her child from a system that criminalizes us at every turn. She showed us that there are moments when silence and submission don't cut it. When you're pushed to the edge, you have to push back. Her strength and defiance remind us that our love for our children, our families, and our dignity is worth fighting for, no matter the consequences. We can't let these systems dehumanize us, and we can't be afraid to defend what's ours. Mrs. McGee's courage is a symbol of the relentless spirit we all carry inside of us, a reminder that no matter how they try to break us, we'll always rise.
Jake McGee, the son of Mrs. McGee, who was one of the main leaders of Greenwood civil rights movement, was arrested. And we got a call, and so I went down to the jail with Mrs. McGee and the lawyer that was there with us for a couple of weeks. And on the way down, I explained to the lawyer that when you go in to talk about making bail for Jake McGee, you be sure that you go with Mrs. McGee in to talk to the chief of police. To go into the office, and Ralph, the local policeman, jumped in front of her and said, "You can't go in there." And Mrs. McGee said, "You better believe I can go in there. They're talking about my son. I'm going in there." He said, "No, you're not." And before I knew it, I'm the nonviolent director of the project in Greenwood. Mrs. McGee, not understanding nonviolence completely, slugged Ralph so hard she knocked him out. And here's this local cop going down, half unconscious, reaching for his gun. So I had, of course, to tackle him nonviolently and make sure that he didn't shoot Mrs. McGee. So as he was sliding down the door, Mrs. McGee was following up. She was not letting up on Ralph, and he was beating him into the ground. And his head is hitting the door, and all of a sudden the police chief and the lawyer, they start trying to get out, and they're hitting Ralph in the back of the head with the door. And finally the police chief said, "Zelder, what's going on out there?" And I said, "Chief, Ralph is trying to shoot Mrs. McGee." And he said, "Well, let us the hell out of here." And I said, "Well, if you'll make Ralph promise not to shoot Mrs. McGee, we'll let you out." So he said, "Ralph, don't you shoot Mrs. McGee." So I dragged Ralph away, making sure to hold on to his hand and his gun belt and his gun. And they came out, and we all thought, well, Mrs. McGee is going to go to jail now for battery. But you know, the funny thing was, Eric, that they never charged with Mrs. McGee with beating up Ralph because they didn't want it to get out that a local black woman had beaten up a white policeman.
We need to remember the power and significance of moments like September 1970, when Minister Farrakhan stood before the masses in Atlanta, 5 years after the tragic assassination of Malcolm X. The Nation of Islam was under intense scrutiny, with many accusing them of being involved in Malcolm's death. The air was thick with hostility, with black leaders struggling to find a way out of the suffering our people were enduring. But that night, on the stage of Morehouse, Minister Farrakhan, guided by the wisdom of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, spoke with such power and clarity that it reignited the respect for the Nation of Islam and its mission. His words weren't just a defense of the nation, they were a call for us to reclaim our dignity, our strength, and our power as a people. His speech was more than a mere address. It was a spark that brought hope and unity to a people on the brink of despair. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad knew it. That speech was priceless. In that moment, Farrakhan became more valuable than any material wealth because he carried the truth that we needed to hear, and he did it with the unshakable faith that we could rise above all the obstacles they've thrown in our way. We have to remember that kind of leadership, that kind of message. It's the same message we need today, to fight, to stand firm, to unite, and to never forget the power we hold when we come together.
It's time that those of us who would lead black people understand that you cannot lead black people from the top of the mountain. You got to come down in the valley. Honorable Elijah Muhammad says to us to tell you that we cannot use our old schooling of the white man to build us a school for tomorrow for the black man. Those of you who are in the colleges and universities of America and the world, universities that have been set up by the English, by the French, by the Belgians, by the Dutch, by the Spanish, by the Portuguese, by the Germans, and by the white Americans, you must remember, my educated black brother, that the white man never set up an educational system to train a black man how to lead a black man. If Satan cast out Satan, how then can his kingdom stand? A house divided against itself cannot stand. White people have delighted in dividing black man against his brother. Now today the same thing that they put on us, as the Bible puts it so beautifully, as thou hast done, so shall it be done.
We can't afford to be naive when it comes to our safety, especially in a world where we are still hunted simply because of the color of our skin. As long as those who wish to harm us, oppress us, and dehumanize us continue to hold weapons, we must never be anti-gun. It's not about violence or aggression. It's about survival and protection. For too long, we've been forced to endure brutal violence, whether it's in the streets, at the hands of law enforcement, or in the face of systemic injustice. Our lives are constantly under threat, and it's essential that we stay aware, stay vigilant, and protect ourselves. We cannot afford to be defenseless while others are armed with the tools of destruction. We owe it to ourselves, our families, and our communities to take control of our own safety and refuse to let anyone dictate our ability to protect what's ours. Guns, in the hands of those who understand their responsibility, are a tool for defense, defending our rights, our dignity, and our lives. Never forget, we're not just protecting ourselves, we're protecting the legacy of those who fought before us, so that we don't have to keep fighting the same battles over and over.
If anybody is just starting off, I would say that you need 3 types of guns. I don't know if we can get heavy into that, but okay,
hey, let's do it, Chase. Yeah.
I don't want y'all take it on
you
YouTube
good, bro.
and
You
like
good.
that. For sure,
I got
sure.
you.
But I would say get 3 types of guns. Start with your handgun, your pistol, something that preferably shoots 9 millimeters, because that's a gun that is very accessible. So you want something that you have access to the market to. So 9 millimeter handguns, something like a Taurus or a Glock. You can get a Taurus, a very reliable handgun, somewhere from $300 to $400. Nothing big. This is part of investments as well. When I say investments, I'm not just talking about stocks, but invest in your defense as well. Invest in your knowledge of self. But this time we're talking about defense. So I would say get a handgun. Number 2, get a rifle, some form of rifle. I like AR calibers, because again, that's kind of like America's gun. So they're very easily accessible. You can find parts to them. Some that shoots 2, 3, 5, 5, 6. Those are the most popular caliber of bullets. And then lastly, you have a shotgun. And the shotgun is usually for house defense. The shotgun is something that we like to say you can't miss with a shotgun. You can't miss with a shotgun. That's something that clear the room out. But these are necessities. This is not me being radical or anything like that. Everybody had a gun back in our days. Our ancestors, even when you talk about Dr. King, he was a gun owner. It was said that Rosa Parks, if you walked into her house and every given weekday, that her husband would have so many guns out on the table, they had to clear them out for you to find somewhere to sit. Fannie Lou Hamer, they asked her famously, how would she stop the bombing of her houses? And she said she keep a shotgun in every room, by every window. And she said if a cracker was to come up on her porch, that would be the last time he talked to his mama. Okay.
We must never forget that the brutal slave breeding plantations were not just sites of forced labor, but deliberate tools for European greed, turning Black bodies into commodities. Those plantations were designed to profit from our very existence, stripping us of our humanity and dignity. And beyond the physical violence, Black men endured the shame and trauma of buck breaking, public humiliating assaults meant to break our spirits and control our communities. Recognizing these atrocities is crucial to understanding our history and fueling our fight for justice and liberation.
I'm writing an album called The Middle Passage. They've shown us every plantation with cotton on it. You know what plantation they've never shown us, Abby? The most prominent ones, the ones that were most profitable, the breeding plantations. Why don't you want to show us those? You know why? Because after the research that I did for this album, you realize that the moment that a girl menstruated, she was put in a stable where a horse would be and forcibly mated, forcibly raped by a male of the slave master's choice. And when she had children, they weren't called children, they were called a litter of pups. The punishment for raping or killing a person in medieval Spain is gelding. Gelding is when you take hot pincers and you take a man's balls and dick off root and stem. Killing a person, law of the Bible, right? Medieval Spain, super religious. You killed a man, he should be killed. Why were indigenous and black people categorized as subhuman? So under the law, you would not be punished for the things that you did to us. That's why. You used to be proud, right? Used to be proud, white America, of rape and murder. Used to be proud of colonization. Used to, wow, that made us tough. And then you got ashamed of it. And that's what you're dealing with. That's what America's dealing with, a schizophrenic crisis. There's a British manual, right, that was taken out of the British Museum because within the manual, it talked about how rape was a weapon of war that should be used against the indigenous population. You're ashamed of that now. You're ashamed, right? Who was Christopher Columbus? His image has been so whitewashed, but he was trafficking little girls on an island. Who does that sound like, huh? All you right-wing defenders of Christopher Columbus and his legacy, he was trafficking 9-year-old indigenous girls on an island. Who does that remind you of, you intellectual coward? Just because liberals are dog shit doesn't mean that you shake hands with the devil.
They always want to show us hurt, pain, and suffering, as if that's all we've ever known. But we must remember that there were times when we were whole, when we were joyful, when we stood together as a people and celebrated life, love, and our strength. Before they came and stole everything from us, we lived in communities where we nurtured each other, where we built, sang, danced, and laughed. We were not just victims, and we were not just broken people to be pitied. We were creators, warriors, parents, and builders. The media, history, and the system want us to forget this part of who we are, to focus only on the trauma they inflicted. But we have to hold on to the truth that we've always had the power to be happy, to be whole, and to uplift each other. It's in our blood, it's in our history, and it's in our spirit. No matter how hard they try to suppress that joy, we have to remember it, honor it, and bring it back to life. We are not just a people defined by the hurt they caused. We are a people who have always known how to find joy, even in the darkest times. We can't keep allowing ourselves to accept the standards and expectations of other societies that were never built with us in mind. Too often, we're pressured to conform to what the world tells us we should be, to fit into molds that strip away our dignity, our identity, and our values. But we have to stand firm in who we are and what we know to be true. Our children deserve more than to simply accept limitations others try to impose on them. We must raise our boys to be men who understand their power, their purpose, and their responsibility, not to the world's idea of masculinity, but to their own dignity and strength. And we must raise our girls to be women who respect themselves, who know their worth, and who carry the legacy of our foremothers with pride. We cannot let the pressures of society push them into roles they were never meant to play. Our children must grow up knowing that they are not here to please others or shrink into anyone's idea of who they should be. We must teach them to honor themselves, to stand tall in their truth, and to never accept anything less than the respect and love they deserve.
On the lap, you're sitting. Did you wait?
No.
It would be her. Abby, isn't Jeremy on the other side? Where am I? I'm going to show you. Ow! All right, Bernie. He's actually going to sit on your lap. No? Okay. Do we have the apple box?
You put the show.
Right there?
Stone Mountain stands as a stark reminder of the power dynamics that have shaped this country's history, and we can't afford to forget its symbolism. That monument carved into the mountain was meant to celebrate the Confederacy, to glorify those who fought to keep us in chains. But Atlanta, the city that stands just miles away, is a testament to our resilience, our growth, and our ability to reclaim spaces that were never meant for us. Atlanta is more than just a city. It's a hub of Black excellence, culture, and history. From the civil rights movement to the thriving Black businesses, arts, and education systems, Atlanta has always been a place where we've built our own power, even in the face of adversity. It's a city where we've shown time and time again that despite the forces that have tried to hold us down, we will rise. We must remember Stone Mountain, not just as a symbol of oppression, but as a reminder of how far we've come and the strength we've always had. Atlanta shows us that we can take back what they tried to steal from us, we can make our own destiny, and we can build a future that honors our ancestors.
When you say Stone Mountain, a lot of people don't know. Reason why Atlanta is so great like that, because Stone Mountain is a large piece of granite. And it travels all the way through the city, and Atlanta is on top of like one of the largest pieces of granite in America.
That's a fact.
And what it is that when that sun hit that granite, the vibration off the ground and off the people, it kind of translates. And I was doing some studying that it goes all the way back to Egypt.
When are we going to stop allowing them to play us in our faces? They knowingly choose our beautiful Black queens to be beside them in the media and entertainment. But when it comes to something that is supposed to represent us, they always choose to make us look ghetto, ratchet, and/or from the hood. We all should be ashamed of this, and we cannot continue to just blame Republicans for these types of things. They all play with us, treating us like we're some ghetto trash. And we let them, by how most of us carry ourselves and those of us who don't even care. We continue to forget how many people died for us to be free and to enjoy the simple things we do. We have to stop allowing them to play with us like this, especially when it comes to our Black queens. But this isn't a time to place men and women apart. It should show us why we need to stick together even more. We need to start loving each other again and then realize who the ops actually are. Special thanks to Milton Thomas III for creating the channel. May you all have peace and love in your lives. Thanks for watching.
Yesterday. About the complete independence of people of African descent here in the Western Hemisphere, and first here in the United States, and bring about the freedom of these people by any means necessary. That's our motto. We want freedom by any means necessary. We want justice by any means necessary. We want equality by any means necessary. We don't feel that in 1964, living in a country that is supposedly based upon freedom and supposedly the leader of the free world, we don't think that we should have to sit around and wait for some segregationist congressmen and senators and a president from Texas in Washington, D.C. to make up their mind that our people are due now some degree of civil rights. No, we want it now, or we don't think anybody should have it.
Yeah. Stories buried deep, dust on the shelf. They don't teach the truth, had to learn it myself. Ancestors whisper, they gave me the clues. In a system built to confuse and diffuse. Forgotten roots, they paved the way. Their light still shines through night and day. We honor the past, won't let it stray. Forgotten Black history, we here to stay. Rosa sat down, but that's not it. Whole movement sparked, igniting the grit. Madam CJ stacking generational wealth. Her legacy lives, we reclaim what's felt. Forgotten roots, they paved the way. Their light still shines through night and day. We honor the past, won't let it stray. Forgotten Black history, we here to stay.